Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Palo Alto, where we come to transform ourselves and each other and the world. You are welcome to keep your video on throughout the service. We'll mostly keep our audio off, but let's all unmute for a few moments right now to say hello. Hello. Hello, hello. Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Hey. You can see the order of service by following the link in the chat. I have a couple of announcements for you. I asked a group of UUCPA. Can you turn the speaker off for me? I'm just hearing myself, and it's like people singing the national anthem in a stadium. I don't know how they do it. Thanks. I asked a group of UUCPA folks a question recently. So this is a quiz. If you're tired of Wordle, see if you can guess what the question was from the answers I received. It's fun to see all the different people as they come in, the ones I know and the ones I don't. I enjoy being able to see everybody that attends the service, saying hello to friends and visitors. I get to say good morning to so many of my friends and soon-to-be friends. I enjoy greeting people as they arrive, offering assistance as needed, and getting to know members, new and old. It's an opportunity to serve the church and to meet members of the congregation. Okay, you got it? You can put in the chat what you think the answer is. What question did I ask? The question was, why do you enjoy ushering at UUCPA? I asked the ushers that, and this is what they said. Some of our ushers have other responsibilities now, such as running our sound system, or they have moved away. So if you also enjoy seeing all the different people who come in, wishing them good morning, offering assistance to people who need it, and getting to know more people here, ushering once a month might be for you, or signing up as a sub for when the regular usher can't do it, or just trying it out once to see what you think. So please write to Mike McLaughlin or ushers@uucpa.org to learn more. The links are there in your order of service. And we will soon need more ushers because, can I get a drum roll, please, wherever you are? Drum roll. We are restoring the 11 o'clock in-person service beginning next Sunday, March 6th at 11, as well as at 9:30. You can attend the service here at UUCPA. Not only that, but at 11, you can sit indoors if you want to, and you have proof of vaccination. Lots more details, so follow the link to that's there in your order of service. But I'll tell you a few important things. At 11, we will also have outdoor seating, and we will continue to have the service online as well. If this is how you come, keep on coming. It'll be great. We have the screens here. We will all be together wherever we are at 11 o'clock. At 9:30, the changes are smaller, but also exciting. We are moving off the parking lot and onto the main patio. We said a ceremonial farewell to the pickleball players over in Mitchell Park from our service earlier this morning. So for more details, please follow the link in the order of service to the full article on these changes. And I'll see you next week, one way or another. And now, let us begin the service. If you have a chalice there with you, please light it as I share the words of the Reverend Gretchen Haley. This is a call to weep, to rage, to raise our voices, to get real with the words and the wishing for the world to look different, for the breaking to stop, for the healing to hold. This is a call to courage, to let in all the headlines and know them as family. Our brother fleeing Ukraine, our teenage cousin wondering their worth in Texas, our frightened friend watching the Supreme Court in Mississippi, and also our uncle in Michigan, unsure about who to trust. This is a call to hear each other in the one more thing that has tipped our days over or saved us from the brink, brought us back from the edge, or let us let go, finally surrendering in the mystery. This is a call to praise the presence of partners who will greet us in rooms on Sunday mornings and in the streets when the siren calls. Partners who will bake bread and set the tea kettle to boil and sit down for long sighs and deep belly laughter. This is a call to gratitude that we are not alone, that we are a part of a great history of partners who have promised to go the way of love, that we can travel these days together and remind each other of all this beauty. This is a call to worship together. With our centering words each week, we draw on the many sources of our living tradition. Today's words come from Ocean Vuong, the Vietnamese-born U.S.-American poet and novelist. Too much joy, I swear, is lost in our desperation to keep it. As we follow the sound of the bell into silence, let us become centered and fully present in this place together. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing Through the Hard Times.
Sometimes our living gets so dark and lonesome, it seems like there's nothing we can do. So we reach out to each other and raise a song together and let our voices carry us through. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come. And when the war clouds gather, it's so easy to get angry, and just as hard not to be afraid. But you know in your own heart no matter what happens. You just can't turn your back and walk away. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come. So hand in hand together, we help each other carry the light of peace within us every day. If we can learn to live it, to walk and talk and give it, that world of peace won't be so far away. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come. We are singing through the hard times, singing through the hard times, working for the good times to come.
We now turn our thoughts to the important events of our lives, which we wish this community to share. First, I want to share a prayer for peace by Valerie Carr, author of the book See No Stranger and a spiritual leader in our time. Will you join me in hearing her words and let them be a prayer from all of us? To the people of Russia, we see you, marching in the streets, risking arrest, bearing the cold, and holding your signs high, no war. Your courage is a beacon. You show the world that Russia's leadership is not Russia's people. Only you have the power to stop this war at its source. Keep going. To the people of Ukraine, we see you, waking to the sound of sirens, pulling your children from the windows, and preparing to protect all you love. We tremble with you and wail with you. You are not alone. We are rising up in solidarity and sending you our prayers, our action, and our aid. To the children of Ukraine, when I told my son about you, he wanted to send you our prayer, Tati Vau na Lagi. My grandfather sang this as a soldier in World War II. When German air raids came at night, he slept on the ground and imagined this Sikh prayer as his shield. So tonight we closed our eyes and sang his prayer for you. We imagined a shimmering gold shield around your homes and your families and you. The prayer means the hot winds cannot touch you. You are shielded by love. And so I ask all of us, what if we made a shield of love? What if this was the moment an unprecedented number of people around the world stood against war? What if we shifted collective consciousness so that never again would any government win support to start a war? What if our voices and songs and actions flooded Russia and Ukraine now, bringing aid and courage and change? We can choose to see no stranger, to see the people of Ukraine as our family and the soldiers of Russia as lost ones who can be called home. We can let that sight shape how we grieve and what we do. Each of us has a role. Each of us has a role. Just remember, my love, Valerie Carr writes, We are tired and wired and stressed from pandemic and injustice. Now, war. So breathe and rest before you push. Read and learn before you respond. Revolutionary love is not the sacrifice of an individual, but the practice of a community. Together. Courage. Let us say amen. Over the past several weeks, we have said goodbye to several members of our congregation, so let us now light a candle for each of them, and then I will get a chance to turn to all of your joys and sorrows. Norm Conradson, husband of Nancy Jensen. We will celebrate Norm's life and remember him here, Sunday, April 10th at 2 p.m. Bert Norrell, husband of Maria Norrell. Sylvia Witcher, whose memorial service will be held on Zoom, Tuesday, March 22nd, 10 a.m. All this information will go onto our website so that you can join these services as they come around. Sylvia. Helene Barnes has died, the wife of Art Barnes. And just last week, we lost Ken Hardy. See what a great light they were. May their memories bless us with warmth and vision as they did in life. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like me to speak this morning, please send your joys and sorrows to joyconcern@uucpa.org or post them in the chat box provided by Zoom, and they will be shared aloud. Let us now take a few moments of silent prayer or meditation to hold all that we have heard with all the compassion and care we have in our hearts, knowing as we feel it flowing out to others, it will express itself in our words, in our actions, in the way we treat one another throughout the week. Blessed be. Please join in as Bruce leads us in singing, "We Are Not Our Own."
We are not our own, earth forms us, leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. We are not alone, earth names us, past and present, peoples near and far, family and friends and strangers show us who we are. Therefore let us make thanksgiving, and with justice willing and aware, give to earth and all things living liturgies of care. Let us be a house of welcome, living stone upholding living stone, gladly showing all our neighbors we are not our own.
My turn for a stewardship testimonial. I hope I tell you every week in one form or another what I treasure about this congregation and how much I need what we are creating together. Howard Thurman advised us to do what we need to come alive because, as he said, the world needs people who have come alive. So we are blessing the world as well as ourselves with the energy and inspiration we give each other at UUCPA. I also get a burst of both inspiration and energy from hearing what matters to you. And so I loved the stewardship conversation that Barbara Schonborn and I hosted on Friday. I'm really looking forward to the rest of mine. And I wish I could be in all of those led by others as well. I want to tell you, please don't miss out. Please say yes to that invitation sitting in your email inbox. And if you're brand new, or you don't think you received one, or you don't know where it's gotten to, please reach out to pledge@uucpa.org, and we will connect you with one of these conversations. One thing we don't talk about in those conversations, unless you want to, is how much to pledge. We figure that the stewardship materials make it clear what our annual budget is. Again, if you didn't get one of those, let us know. We'll send you the packet of information. They tell us about how much of that we raise from pledges. What part of that will come from you is for you to determine, and we'll give guidance on it only if you explicitly ask for that. Our conversations aren't about money, but about you and us and our community and what is mattering to us right now in our lives. But I had a money conversation several days ago that moved me so much, I want to share it with you. I was chatting with my friend Vanessa Southern, the senior minister of our congregation in San Francisco. We were talking about the financial stresses that COVID has put on our congregations. Among other things, theirs depends a lot on rental income, as UUCPA does, and that has been pretty sparse these last couple of years. So I asked her how pledges had been at San Francisco last year. They have a similar profile to ours, mostly middle to upper class folks making a good income and living in a very expensive area. She said, well, we asked those who could do it to double their pledge for 1 year. Double their pledge! I had thought we were pushing it to ask for 20% increase. Over and over again, clearly, I need to remember to go ahead and dream big. Vanessa described how some, not all, But some members were doing just great in COVID times. They were emotionally stressed by isolation and worry, of course, but financially, they were unaffected, or in fact had had very good years, especially those whose income comes largely from the stock market. Now, our conversation was last week. Her appeal to her congregation was last year. Of course, the week since then has been less rosy for those of us with stocks since the invasion of Ukraine. Fortunately, financial advisors tell us that a bear market is unlikely and that Wall Street is already recovering from the dip. Let us hope. Anyway, Vanessa said that was the appeal they made, that those who were fortunate enough to be doing well in these tough times double their pledge for 1 year to help fully fund their congregation through to the other side. I was so moved by the boldness of that, by the confidence in the connection among their people. I share that confidence here. And I thought, some of us could do that. Some of us. And what a thrill it would be to make such a huge impact on your community. Of course, I asked Vanessa, how did the campaign go? And she said, all in all, on average, pledges went up by 50%. I thought of how great it would be to have a 50% bump for 1 year. Now, good fundraising strategy says I probably should ask you for 100% in hopes of getting 50%, but I'm really not good with those games. So I'm just going to ask for what I'm dreaming of, my own stretch goal, 50%. I don't know your situation, but I'm asking you to ask yourself if you have had a good 2 years financially, or a very good 2 years. Have you been able to work full time? Have you gotten a raise? Have your investments yielded more than usual? And if so, and this congregation means a lot to you, I hope you will consider raising your pledge by 50% over last year's, just for this year. You can tell us that it's a 1-year increase when you send in your pledge card or your email to pledge@uucpa.org, because we want to make sure that the letters we send next year remind you of your baseline instead of that new extra high total. If you've already pledged, but you would like to add 50% to that for this 1 year, send me and the rest of the stewardship committee an email there at pledge@uucpa.org. And whatever you do. Thank you. Thank you. You have already helped make UUCPA a place where we transform ourselves, each other, and the world by being here. Thank you for making my dreams come true every day. Well, this month, the next couple of weeks, we will have reached 24 months of the pandemic. So I had the clever idea of having 24 lessons from the pandemic, and I thought I was probably really pushing it. I'd never be able to come up with 24. But in fact, I keep coming up with more, and you probably will too. Have some lessons that have come to you that you wish to share that I don't name here, so hey, bring them to the conversation after the service. And as I share them, one for each month, think of which of these you want to carry with you to post-pandemic times, whatever those may be, and whenever those may be. Jot it down. Send yourself an email right now if that's what you need in order to remember it. 1. These are not in order of importance, but this one is really important. Lesson 1, how to wash our hands properly, which many of us discovered we hadn't been doing. And we've also learned that if we do it consistently, we get far fewer colds and flus. Now, some of the drop in everyday illnesses that happened over the last 2 years comes from interacting with fewer people, no doubt. But some of it is due to better hygiene. So, hey, let's keep practicing it. Number 2, we have learned which song verses or poems are 20 seconds long. I use the opening words of Star Trek personally. If you say space, the final frontier, in just that proper Patrick Stewart cadence, it lasts for 20 seconds. Lesson 3, some of us have learned going out of the house is overrated. Lesson 4, some of us have learned staying at home is overrated. Number 5, one person's blessing is another's curse. And therefore, we need to be gentle with each other. Even something as natural and unprejudiced as a virus does not affect us all equally. For example, some people have to go to work, others could scale back. Some people could work at home or go to school from home. They had computers and good connections and that kind of work, and others work literally hands-on other people's bodies or drive them around, and it just wasn't possible. We're not all affected the same way. Number 6, the lesson is that therefore we have to arrange our social systems better, more for everyone's benefit. Other countries did it better. Some did it worse. There are other ways to manage a crisis like this that help prevent problems, such as an ill caregiver going from home to home. She is not only at great risk for her own health, but she's carrying the disease around the community because we don't offer other options. Number 7, we especially need to deepen our compassion when the same events have radically different impacts on different people. When one person is harmed by the same thing that leaves another untouched or even giving thanks. A pandemic example is that some of us by now can return to almost normal, possibly with nothing to worry about that we didn't have back in 2019, except a new nasty kind of flu, while others continue to live with a new dangerous threat, and probably always will. Or how many millions are grieving someone they lost to COVID? and always will. You know, the form that this truth takes is new, but the story is as old as humanity. An earthquake shakes the ground, and one house stands while the one next door falls. An election brings joy to some and despair to others. So can we remember, thanks to our teacher, the pandemic, that the wheel is always turning? And can we remember to be as kind to those who are right now on the bottom as we hope others will be to us when we are there? Because we inevitably will be, no matter how fortunate we are, now and then. Number 8, those things that we've been putting off doing because we don't have time at home, that's not the only reason that we put them off. Yeah, we learned that one the hard way. Lesson number 9. This one hurts. The times in the past that everyone pulled together, there were some who didn't. There was a bitter joke going around when the divide opened up, when people were defying the lockdown, not wearing masks, and then people weren't even taking the vaccine that we'd waited so long for, and couldn't believe that the tremendous work that had made it happen so soon. Some people still didn't want to take that opportunity. So this bitter joke was going around about the London Blitz. And what would have happened if neighbors then had said, I'm not going to live in fear. I'm leaving my lights on during the blackouts. But that got me thinking about how there were people who did that. That when the siren went off because German planes were going overhead and the city had to go dark so as not to give them a target, there were citizens deputized to police and even punish people who didn't observe the blackout, which tells us, A, that there were people who didn't, and B, it wasn't just forgetfulness. Just reminding them wasn't always enough. Which brings us to lesson number 10. People will act foolishly if they attach their political views or their identity, markers of their identity, to health decisions. We see that now, as the vast majority of people who become seriously ill and die are people who are refusing to believe the facts of how the virus is transmitted and prevented. But this kind of foolishness cuts both ways. Maybe not equally, but people can be overly reckless or overly cautious because they've attached their identity to these decisions. It's an important thing to learn, so maybe we can do differently going forward. Number 11, thousands, millions of people, despite this, are as brave and noble and self-sacrificing as any heroes in a book. Hospital workers of all kinds, caregivers, teachers, emergency workers who never trained for an emergency to go on so long, so incessantly, with so little support, with so little rest. The scientists who've developed amazing vaccines and treatments when they just wanted to rest as much as anyone else, when they were as scared as anyone else. It's good to remember just how amazing people can be. Lesson 12 is that many of us have a great deal of creativity in us that just needs time and opportunity to blossom. A couple of my favorite examples of this from way early in the pandemic, but you can still find them on the internet if you miss them, were the couple who put together a gerbil museum. Yeah, they love to go to museums, they couldn't, other people couldn't, so they had this brilliant, strange idea of making the enclosure for their pet gerbils a little tiny museum with little tiny benches and little tiny art on the walls with even tinier labels, and the gerbils would run around, and they put all this on the internet to cheer us all in hard times. I'm also loving the guy who did special effects for the movies. At first, when the pandemic happened, he couldn't do his work. His kids couldn't go to school. And so he put his talents to work at home, staging his children in special effects scenarios. And so little kids are now on the internet really looking like when they play Don't Step on the Floor, It's Lava. It's really lava. So good. You need cheering up? Have a look. Lesson number 13. We're all connected. Wuhan province and our counties here, they're not far away at all. Hospitals everywhere are affected by the availability of staff anywhere, of personal protective devices anywhere. Whatever happens to one of us truly affects everybody in patterns that we don't anticipate. Lesson number 14, speaking of travel, is that we don't need to travel from place to place nearly as much as we thought we did. And boy, it really has quite an effect on our local environment when we all get out of our cars for a while and when we get back into them. Number 15, we can live in uncertainty for a long time and well. I'm told that yesterday's sacred text reading group had a great conversation about John Keats's passage about negative capability, what he called the ability to resist, his words, an irritable reaching after fact and reason, when we just can't know something, when we just are in an uncertain situation. He called this a mark of the mature person. And that's where we've been. Just living with a lot of, I don't know. I don't know when this will change. I don't know what's safe. I don't know whether these measures are necessary. I don't know how to balance safety and community. We're all figuring it out, and it's hard to live in that uncertainty. And we've done it with remarkable grace for a really long time. This is such a powerful lesson from our teacher, the pandemic, because really, it's where we all live all the time. We do. We're not always aware of it. We don't want to be aware of it. And as a pretty prosperous community, part of the global 1%, we on the whole at this congregation are pretty able to shield ourselves from life's vicissitudes. We control so much of our lives that we can bend even the planet to our will. But then we discover we really can't. We really don't have as much control as we think we do. The fundamental things apply. Much of life is beyond our control or understanding. And we're sailing along 1 minute, and then the next, everything changes. It's good to be reminded of that and to remember just how resilient we are in the face of that uncertainty. Lesson number 16. The people who are essential to society aren't only the few who come to mind. Lesson 17. Going back to creativity, resourcefulness, just look at this congregation alone as a microcosm of just what we can do when we just really need to get creative. We have a music director who we discovered makes gorgeous videos. We have a minister of religious education who has created a whole community of stuffies. We know their names and their personalities, and they've brought us together into a community. We have numerous people among us who act and create a weekly broadcast and do so much to create community in ways that they didn't know that they would have to the beginning of March 2020, and by the middle of March, there they were. There you were. Amazing. Lesson number 18. Sometimes things just feel bad. They just keep feeling bad after we think they're going to have gotten better. And trying to look on the bright side at some moments just becomes toxic positivity, to share a great phrase I just learned. James Baraz, a founding teacher of Spirit Rock Meditation Center, wrote about what we can do at such a moment. I find that perhaps the important question to ask yourself is, what do I need right now to be here for my life? And then instead of trying to figure out an answer, listen inside for the wisdom that's there if you quiet down enough to hear it. This is a lesson I've been learning, and I've learned it from the pandemic. And asking ourselves what we need and listening for the answer is a lesson that will never go out of style. Number 19, we can't always know how something is affecting us. It takes time. It takes a long time to discern it, to even feel it. You know how sometimes you're just in a really good mood one day and you don't even know why, it wasn't a special day, or you burst out crying and you realize it was about something that happened hours before. We may yet discover years from now how these 2 years affected us. It's a kind of long COVID of the soul. Although whether the effects of these particular long-term ripples are destructive or positive, we can't say. No doubt some of them will be positive, like the ones I'm sharing right now. Lesson number 20. We don't need nearly as much toilet paper as we might think. Maybe we could scratch out toilet paper from that sentence and fill in something else. We don't need nearly as much blank as we might think. And if suddenly we had to ration it, we'd be okay. Maybe we'd walk a little more lightly on the earth if we thought about what might go in that blank for us. Okay, so we don't need as much toilet paper, but number 21 is that we do need each other so much. "22. Life is a lot harder when we can't sing together. Number 23, conversely, life is a lot better when we can sing together, singing through the hard times. Let's notice that next week, when many of us will be singing in person during this hour, indoors. And those of us who are out on the patio, who are online, will be joining in with that whole mass of voices. You know, you have any favorites, the ones you've just been dying to hear in that kind of mode? All of us singing together. Email me. I may get more than I can use, but let me know what you're waiting to sing. And number 24. We are all vulnerable. We are all essential to someone. We are all living in an interconnected web. And love and care may not always make us safe. They may not always make us happy, but they make us whole. We have been reluctant students of a teacher we never signed up for this pandemic for 2 years. But let us be blessed by some of what we have learned and carry it forward. Blessed be. I'm so aware, looking around this space together today, how it feels when it's almost empty, just a few people in this space. How different it will feel next week. How amazing it is that we are gathered in so many ways, in so many places, and can share with one another. I'm just so grateful that we can create this together and that we have created it. Our offering is a symbolic way to give to this space, to create and sustain this room, these Zoom rooms, all the ways that we meet one another. It's a spiritual practice, like our singing, our speaking, our silence, our listening, our praying, our meditating. We practice giving and receiving. So if we are so moved, we may choose to support in this moment, in an act of a spiritual practice, this community that we are creating, that creates and sustains us. And we receive it as well. And so the order of service gives a QR code and a link, and also information on using text to give via Give Lively. Please take a moment to give as you can and to feel the gift that you are receiving. As Larry plays for us. Thank you. Now please join in as Bruce leads us in singing The Leaf Unfurling.
Unfurling in the April air, the newborn child of the loving parent's care, these constant common miracles we share. Alleluia, alleluia. All life is one, a single branching tree, all pain a part of human misery, all happiness a gift to you and me. Alleluia, alleluia. The self-same bells for joy and sorrow ring. No one can know what the next hour will bring. We cry, we laugh, we mourn, and still we sing. Alleluia, alleluia.
As we extinguish our chalice, we are aware of the light around and within us. And so, in the words of Kathleen McTeague, may the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we seek. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest, so that we may give ourselves to the work of the world. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Judy Lookabell, for continuing to get amazing musicians in, again, a time of flux. Are they coming here? Are they online? Are they recorded? Thank you so much for all your creativity, and anybody who wants to add suggestions of musicians to bring, just send them along to Judy. Now, please stay after the benediction for our virtual coffee time. You will be invited to small group conversations in our breakout rooms, or if you want to discuss the topic of the service, stay here in the main room with me. That'll be our topic here. So just don't accept an invitation to a breakout room, and the invitation will go away. Now, please unmute yourself and turn on your video as you're comfortable, and touch hands virtually like this. You could put them up to the sides of the box if, your box is like that. Or put a hand on your heart and another out to others while we say our benediction together. Go out into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to what is good. Return no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering, rejoice in beauty, speak love with word and deed, honor all beings. Amen.